Hey everyone, welcome to the Self-Awareness Journey podcast. I'm Melissa Albers.
And I'm JJ Parker. This podcast is for seekers of happiness, joy, and a centered approach to success in life. Seekers of their true, authentic selves.
Get ready for some real talk on everything from anxiety, emotions, and habits to love, compassion, and forgiveness. We know you'll be challenged and enlightened by this conversation, and we're so glad you're here. Let's dive in.
All right, we're going to have to somehow figure out how we're going to slip ourselves into this topic because you sent me a text.
Because it's so easy.
and about what you want to talk about. And then I think I either misread it or misinterpreted it.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be a little bit of like finding common ground here right at the beginning as we figure it out. But the gist of it is you want to talk about, as parents, how we kind of take responsibility for our kids' behaviors. And actually what I kind of read was taking responsibility for our kids' emotions. You said behaviors, but I actually read emotions. So we're a little misaligned on our topic here, but I think both are super interesting. So let's talk about both. Let's attempt to talk about both of them, and we'll like tease them apart.
All right.
So.
Okay. Well, I think, how about if I frame it what I was thinking, and then you talk about what you were thinking, because you transferred it a little bit and made it something different.
Yeah.
Which is super interesting. Okay. I wrote, as our children age, when do we stop taking emotional responsibility for our children's behaviors and start transferring that ownership to them? That's what I
see where I went wrong. I only read half of what you say.
I need to stop being so verbose. I know. We're onto something here.
Okay. But you're saying, okay, our kids do something like maybe not favorable, like
behave badly.
Okay, they throw an absolute embarrassing temper tantrum in the target.
Right.
And you are taking and you're taking emotion and that causes an emotional response with you. Right?
Yeah. Yes.
Like you're very embarrassed.
Sort of.
You're embarrassed at their behavior.
You're super embarrassed.
And you're asking, when do I actually stop becoming embarrassed when my kids do something embarrassing?
Well, what I'm saying is, like, let's make it a little older child, because I think it's in better context. Lots of us have kids in sports, high school sports. Okay. Teams. You see some kid on the team absolutely lose it when they don't get the goal, they don't win the game, and they have really bad sportsmanship. Okay. Or just embarrassing sportsmanship. It doesn't even have to be wildly out of whack. A parent in the stand is going to have a huge emotional reaction to that. Okay? And this is very real. Like, you see this on the news all the time now about parents acting badly at high school games.
And your contention there is that they're actually acting badly on behalf of their kid. They're like responding to something their kid did.
Yes, they're responding in a way that they feel responsible for this child's behavior, right? And then what ensues is parents may be acting poorly, making excuses for being deeply embarrassed, trying to pretend like it didn't happen. Like, all these things occur because a child that is old enough to know better hasn't exercised, common sense, decency. I see what you're saying.
You'll see it all the time. Like, they'll start justifying their kid's action. Well, he was up late. Well, he's got, right. Like, he's an ass on the football field, but he's getting straight A's at, and he's such a good student. Or,
but he's getting so much better. Yeah. He's so much better than he was last year. He's really changing. Now, this sounds super judgy where we are right now, so I want to also call this out. This is not about judging how the parent responds to their emotions, okay? What I'm talking about is that feeling, that snap feeling that happens when a parent witnesses or hears something that their child does. It is this instant, oh my gosh, this is me. This isn't my child. This is me. This is a reflection of me. And at what point, that's what I was asking. And I don't know when this changes, because when kids are little, it is our responsibility to guide them and show them good behaviors and model good behaviors. It's always our responsibility. However, some kids just don't, they're just not having it, right? And so then the parent feels so responsible, and the parents could be great. The family could be wonderful family, wonderful families that have done everything that they can. And the kid still doesn't act in a way that's congruous with what the family expects. At what point does the parent say, this is on this child, it's not on us? This is a very sticky topic. This is what I
see where you're at. Okay.
Oh, see, I just noticed you back away from your mic.
Well, I get it because we have this notion like well-behaved kids, polite, well-behaved kids are brought up by, thoughtful, caring, intelligent parents, right? There is this subtext in our
That's
culture
the premise.
that like good kids come from like, I don't know,
squeaky clean parents.
Right. We're good parents, we're good kids. But that is just not, in my experience, like even close to reality.
No, it's not. And like, so like, think about it like this too. Like, as the child gets older, what some people do, because they just don't have the energy, they don't have the focus, they don't know how, they check out of that emotional responsibility maybe sooner than the child is best served, because they don't know what else to do, and they just kind of give up.
Well, okay, so like,
so there's a lot here to unpack.
If you're the king and queen of the monarchy that you rule over, imagine.
Wait, do I have a cape? Can I have a cape?
Have a cape?
Does it have a high
you
collar?
Can have a scepter.
I want a high collar.
Have a big,
okay, definitely.
A big throne.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Fur lined. Yes. It's amazing. Perfect. I'm with you. I got the visual. Keep going.
You want the kids who are the heir to the throne have to behave in the correct, regal, proper way as to like continue your like picturesque monarchy lineage. Yeah, right. Like this is like a fairy tale level story.
Yeah, BS.
Yeah, and it is it is BS. But like that is the narrative, I think, that if you look at sort of the fairy tale world that tries to get constructed, that's what it is.
Right. It is. Yeah.
But like,
and
what?
Oh my gosh. There's absolutely no way that could happen even in America in the 50s, versus today's America, which is just full of different cultures and different families. And
so you're asking
so many things.
When do we stop taking responsibility for our emotional responsibility? Or maybe like, would it be fair to say, when do we stop reacting to our kids' behaviors? Is that
maybe,
a fair?
Yeah. I mean, I think so. I think I just, and by the way, the question may be never. The answer may be never. The answer may be, well, it comes in waves. Like I don't really know. I just think that we as adults with children take a lot of responsibility for our children's actions, behaviors, and emotions. And sometimes that's not of benefit. I think we all have moral obligation and responsibility to raise children that are respectful and, are not narcissistic people. I think there's and treat people with the golden rule, like some common sense types of things, right? Well, at least I'm considering them common sense. But the challenge is what I see is how do we make that how do we get back to a more normalized approach rather than when we're not overdoing always or forgetting about it so early that we've they don't have anything tethering them.
What if we're never responsible for our kids' actions? What if you can sort of create that line or break that idea? Because I wonder if it's an idea. Like, I wonder if it is
instead of a reality.
Yeah, it's like in my parenting experience, like I don't control what the kids do. Like I can't control it. I can try to influence what they do.
Right.
But I can't control what they do.
Exactly.
They do all sorts of stuff on their own. It is like, and they do sometimes they do bad stuff that, other families will look at me like, oh yeah, oh the Parkers, they, that's, don't go near the Parker house. Those kids are bad over there. They're not bad. But I can't control.
I know they're not.
They go out in the world and they do whatever they are going to do.
Yeah.
Like good, bad, or indifferent, right? And I have no control of it.
Yeah.
At all. I have some, and to me, it's more like I like this phrase that I heard once, like, I'm not responsible for my kids. I'm responsible to my kids. So the idea, I can't be responsible for what they do, ever. I can be responsible to them to say, hey, you did a thing that was not cool. Let's talk about that. I can hold them accountable. I can have straightforward conversations with them when I observe things that maybe are not going to serve them in the future or are harming other people or violating core values or things like that. But I can never be responsible for what they actually do.
Right. Yeah. I think some people would not be in alignment with that. I think some people would feel like they did have way more control and they were supposed to exercise deep control. Like the whole adage, as long as you're living under my roof. Like how many times have we heard that over the years, either through parents or, just examples of families, right? But what's interesting about that is it does create a huge gap. Because kids that feel that their parents are trying to overly control them in an unhealthy way, and I'm putting parentheses around unhealthy way because everybody's got different examples of what that might be. But if a kid feels overly controlled by a parent, a kid is going to either comply because they're scared to death, or they're going to do the opposite to prove that they cannot be controlled. And I think most of the time it's going to be, they're going to rebel. Yep, like everything.
It's flight or it's flight or
fight or flight.
Or freeze. The fear one a lot of times for the kids it's like freeze or fight. That's the two.
Yeah. And I think it's so interesting because if you take this control idea and you just spin that out a little bit into a broader perspective of what's happening today, it's interesting to me to think about it like that because there's a lot of societal unrest right now. And there's a lot of anger. There's a lot of people trying to set themselves apart to feel special or to feel different. And how does that frame our children and their behavior? And when they're younger, more youthful and less experienced, how does that frame their actions? Right?
We're getting.
I mean, this is It's a complicated topic.
So I want to, a lot of time, this is clearly like a family or like how are we raising children? But if you let me put a work frame around it to see how it is. Actually, my wife hates when I do this, so we're gonna do it anyway.
That's okay.
If you have employees, right? You've managed people. Are you how much responsibility do you take for your employees' actions?
That's this is a great pivot.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't take much responsibility for my employees' actions. Like I try to train them. I try to help them understand what we're doing, making sure we're going in the right direction. And other than that, like we can start getting into like what micromanagement looks like, what distrust looks like. Like you start really trying to like control employees, and it looks like micromanagement, distrust, like overbearing,
autocratic
It turns
leadership.
into a whole pile of things that are not good, in my opinion. Others might think those are a good way to run organizations, but I don't.
No,
I think the common, or the majority would say, hey, no one likes to be micromanaged and under a tyrant of a boss, right?
Yeah.
Well, if we took that and you apply that same thing to parenting, you can't. If you use those words around parenting, you'd be like, oh yeah, that sounds like a bad parent. Except that's a thing we try to do all the time. Now, I'm not saying like let's not hold our kids accountable. Like as a boss, I also hold my employees accountable. And but the ultimate thing there is you can fire an employee or the employee can quit.
Right. You can't fire a kid.
You can't fire a kid and the kid can't quit. So what do you do?
No. Yeah. Well, and the thing is, like even in the situation that you're giving with work, there is a line in the sand even there too. Because, okay, so let's just say you get a nutso employee that behaves really badly in the office or on company time or something like that, in which you are forced to take a stand because they are not in alignment. And it's usually something like culturally, right? They're not in alignment culturally, or they done something that you end up having to fix or you end up having to manage from a public relations perspective, right? Okay, same thing at home. It's like some of the times, what if your kids, and I don't think it's always intentional on the kid's perspectives.
It's not.
But what if a kid acts way outside of a cultural family norm, a core value norm, and then the parent feels like, oh, public relations have got to kick in here and fix this. Like we have to decide, is this culturally acceptable in the family? And if it's not, what are the consequences? But okay, so those are all the activities and actions, but think about the emotions behind that. At what point do we just say, I'm really sorry that you've made this decision, and I bet that feels really, really bad. Like I'm hoping you're learning from these things, but that the parent isn't taking that responsibility into themselves emotionally.
Yeah. So you said, I think you said the key thing around this topic is it's a public relations problem.
Yeah.
Because, okay, so a story is one of our kids, like when they were in middle school, had a buddy, and they kind of got into quite a bit of mischief together. Like to the point where like people around the neighborhood knew that my kid and this other kid are running around the neighborhood, like causing a little chaos, right?
Causing a
and
ruckus.
Everyone, kind of knows. And then, we'd get this like, oh, we saw them like on the back path doing this or that. I'm like, okay, right. So now we've got like a little bit of neighborhood public relations problem. Well, his buddy, we were really good friends with the parents, right? We kind of co-parented these kids.
Yeah.
Like from birth.
Yeah.
And we'd hang out a lot. But this incident, this thing that the kids did when they were in middle school, our approach to it from a public relations perspective was to kind of say, hey, the kids were doing all this stuff around the neighborhood. That was our kid. He did it. Like, this is how we handled it. This is the lessons we took from it. This is what we did. Our friends tried to completely bury that. Like, never talked about it.
Really?
Never wanted to admit that their kid was involved in anything.
Oh, interesting.
So it's a very different approach.
Awkward.
Right? And it actually caused us to not be friends
awkward
anymore.
Interaction.
Like, it.
Yeah.
And it was like, ooh, that is a clear difference in what we value.
family
and
culture.
Yep. So, and,
Yeah.
you know, and that's okay. I don't, you know, that story is not really about that relationship, but it is like,
No, it's not about the situationship.
it is. I think it is.
Yeah, it's a perfect example.
What you were talking about is taking responsibility for kids' behaviors. And I think a lot of times, whether it is like an internal component to that, I think the main driver of that responsibility for us is an external one. Is one, like, how does this look? Right? How does this compare to other people? How am I going to be judged? It's all of that. You got to look at it on that side.
100%.
On that side of everything.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. And I think if you're really honest with yourself, each parent, not even as a set, each parent has things that they are trying to push out as being, you know, socially acceptable or better than.
Oh, for sure. Like,
yeah. So then you have that whole looking for validation by comparison, and all of the emotions that ensue when you feel that that's been tainted or challenged.
And yeah, like, again, my story was like kind of with some friends, but also my wife and I felt it too. Like, you know, how she kind of wants to look amongst the other moms in the neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
And how
yeah
it's very
that's
complicated.
what I mean. Like, each parent's gonna have really different.
It can cause
and each parent is gonna be different.
It can cause stress on your marriage too.
Yeah,
right there. Some of those.
I think it's interesting too to think about. Yeah, like, and even like if you think about it from a context of a child not doing something bad, if you just talk about it from the context of each child you have, and what kind of personality they have, and as a parent, are you proud of and do you align with that personality, or is the child in an opposite personality from you, and do you find yourself judging that because they're not being a certain way? So I mean, I think it comes out in that way too.
I like observing this. I've got a cousin who's got a couple of kids. One of them is they got 5 kids. There's a set of twins, right? So
bless him. Yeah. By the way, bless them. Bless them.
The oldest, and these two, this couple, they are brilliant, and they are patient, and they're like the most best parents ever.
Oh, they're listening.
They're not. Listening. I don't think he listens.
Okay. Okay.
But they're twins. Absolute nightmare. Like. Like, when they were like tiny, they would, like, the two of them together would like construct these like machines to get out of their crib, and they would, like, one day I had to go over to his house because the kids had shoved like socks down their HVAC system like so far that we couldn't reach, and we had to like take apart like the entire like duct work in his basement.
Oh my
I mean,
gosh.
they were just into all.
Were they boys? Were they boys?
All sorts of mischief, right?
Shocker.
And you know, from the outside, you kind of think like, oh, that's cute. Like, look how mischievous these twins are, right? And for them, I think their experience is probably way different. Like, oh my God, we get a call from school every day.
By 3:00, they're both laying flat on their back, looking up at the sky, saying, "Please, God, let me get through today."
But to me, it's like their parenting style is probably unchanged across all 5 of their kids. Right?
Amazing. That's amazing. Yeah.
Like, they all behave different. So to me, the lesson is like, you can't take responsibility for what your kids are doing, because they're all going to be so different anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think too, like, what you're saying is not like a totally hands-off, uncaring approach. It's the reverse. No. It's like being very hands-on and very caring, but also recognizing that they are humans. They are their own human beings. They are from the time they are born, and our job is to guide and support as much as possible.
Yep.
And then every once in a while, you know, like my kids have always said, I don't know how you did it, but we were more afraid of you than the police. That's what my kids told us once. And I think I've said that on the pod before, but it's so hilarious. But it was the same thing, though. We just always had very strong expectations about how it was to be, a good human being, you know? and then they would go off and do their own thing, and you just shake your head and cover your eyes sometimes.
The other parenting thing, and this is certainly unapproached. So I'm not like kind of advocating that everyone do this as my approach.
Yeah.
Is that I think people learn best by making the mistakes themselves, right? I can tell you, Melissa, to not do something, but until you actually feel what it's like to do that, it doesn't hit as hard. That lesson is not as imprinted. So,
I agree.
When I see the kids make behavioral mistakes and do kind of things that are dumb or whatever, I kind of want them to lean into it, right? And because that's where their lessons come from. So one of my parenting philosophies is, how can I get the kids as many life lessons as possible? Not the easy way, not the like I'm telling you way, but in the like I'm going to really experience it kind of way. Yeah, while they're under my roof. Well, it doesn't completely ruin them.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Where you can still keep them safely somewhere.
But so my context or my frame around stuff when the kids do things that, maybe in public don't look that good or I don't particularly like is, okay, let them go do that. And then we'll have a conversation later about why maybe that wasn't the greatest choice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very complicated thing. And I really think that as we're dealing with, all of these pressures of raising kids, I think parents get really caught up in their own emotions and then they actually lose the context of what's happening.
Yep.
So I don't know. I think it's a great thing to just ask yourself and reflect on.
You've kind of used this analogy before. It's like your emotional capacity is like a glass of water, right? And the more kind of emotional stuff you've got going on is like adding water to that glass. And so many of us, that glass is like the water is at the tippy top of it. And if we can lower the water level,
so any little drop,
it'd be really helpful. And taking on our kids' responsibility for our kids' stuff is just more water in that glass. And if we can remove that amount of water, we can have more margin in our life. Did you enjoy this episode? Please go to your favorite podcast platform to subscribe, rate, and leave a review so others can discover it as well. Growing self-awareness is a lifelong journey, and it's better when we're all in it together. Please think of someone you know who could benefit from hearing today's conversation and share this episode with them.
We can't thank you enough for listening. Until next time, happy exploring.